a lot of people on vacation right now. This is a big vacation time, and if they're not out of town, they've got family in town. But the great thing is that Teresa records this entire meeting, and then it gets posted on YouTube.
And our Facebook.
And so, because a lot of times because we have some regulars I know that are missing tonight, so like I say, I would think it's probably one of the two reasons. They're either gone or their families are here. So, and the other families don't always want to come to a meeting on their vacation, but we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. And I'm Barbara Udit, president. Of course, I think everybody in here knows me. And we're excited. We were a little disappointed when we originally had the Sea Glass Cottage people coming for tonight, and I think she had a death in the family. Yeah. So, which is always sad. And we were thinking of things, and I thought, we've never had the Gulf Breeze Arts. This room has all the Gulf Breeze Arts posters from all the festivals, and somebody told me you were very instrumental in starting the festivals.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I was the assistant director to Audrey Dunn. She was the first director of the show, and then she said one day, "It's your show." And I'm like, "Oh."
All right. So that's the thing. I thought, well, I knew Ralph Thomas because he's our contact when the Gulf Breeze Arts is so great that they give us a table every year, and we are so glad that now it's indoors. I mean, that's great for all the artists and all. They have so much stuff. They need a tent and they need to be outdoors, but we don't have to be outdoors, and it's really nice to be in the building. So it's been very good for us from letting people know about us and selling prints and things like that at the art show. So we appreciate that so much. So I called Ralph and said, "Ralph, any chance you could do a presentation?" And he said, "Oh, you don't want me." He said, "You know who you want," and then he gave me Fuller's name and number and all. So that we appreciate it so much. So I'm going to get us started with prayer, and then we'll let Jim come up. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for bringing us all here safely, and let us get home safely too. And if anybody's on their way, bring them safely and let them find a parking place, although it wasn't too bad tonight with the parking. But thank you for all the blessings in our life. Thank you for always watching over us and taking care of us. Thank you now for this time that we have here, and just bless everyone here tonight. And we ask this in Jesus' name. All right, Jim, I'm going to let you come up and introduce our speaker.
Do the pledge.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Doug, would you, is it Don? I know, I was close. I tell you, I'm working on all the names. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for keeping me on track, Jim.
I'm delighted to be able to introduce Fuller Brown to you, especially who was step in, like Barbara said at the last minute, because our critical speaker is out of town at a funeral today. Okay, and Fuller Brown is a longtime local artist, multi-talented in terms of painting, sculpture, portraits, you name it, he's done it. Okay. And as Barb mentioned, he's very instrumental in the founding of the Gulf Breeze Art Festival. He was the director for about 10 years. And he founded Quayside Art Gallery. He and I couldn't be more different. I'm a recovering accountant. Okay. My artistic abilities are somewhere below zero. Okay. So I always appreciate art, and I appreciate people who do art, because it's one of the talents I just don't have. Okay. So, Fuller Brown?
Yeah.
That's all you.
Well, on have to dress up for this occasion. I thought tonight that I would treat you all as if you're artists. And so a lot of people don't know who I am or what I do and everything. So I'll give you my spiel. My name is Fuller Brown. I had a, what do you call it, an FBI agent one time told me, he says, you're the man with two last names. And I said, really? He said, yeah, anybody that has like Billy Bob, Bobby Joe, or they're in jail. So he said, I didn't have to go to jail. But I am a Master of Fine Arts, 1980, and I enjoy doing it. And one of the things that's really interesting is that I know a lot as a master, and that if I don't know it, I can know where to find it, and if I can't find it, I can make it up. So, anyway, I'm good at doing a lot of things. Got a lot of stories behind me and stuff, and so it's an honor being here. I've met you before outside, and we talked and everything. Had a good time with that. I like going out hunting for things, you know, in sand and stuff. And I finally got me one of those things, metal detector, and I've been wanting to go out on the beach and try it, but there's one area on the beach you kind of have to be careful. Still got bombs out there, and it's not down there by the, I guess it's West Florida thing out there. It used to be a target range, and the bombs are not, they're little baby guns that put smoke out there or whatever it is when they drop them. But it's not dangerous that I know of, but I enjoy going out there and looking for things because I take my camera with me and I like to photograph the beach. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is photographing the beach because it has all these nice shadows during the day or at morning time and evening and stuff. And you never know what you're going to run into, you know, my dad and I were out photographing one morning, and we came across a young girl. Volkswagen was turned upside down. She was off in the sand, and I asked her, "How'd you get out of the car?" She said, "I was thrown clear of the car." And so, but the nice thing was it was in the sand. So that was the day of the CB radio, and so we called in and got a helicopter out there and got her taken care of. So it's little things that you run into.
That's a good thing. That's a big thing.
Big thing. But I am a painter and I am a sculptor. I classify myself as that because if you paint, you do a lot of things. You oil, acrylic, whatever else you have to have. And then as a sculptor, you get these industrial ideas in your head about what to make and try to make them fly. And so I used to do a lot of these things when I was younger. Now it's kind of slowed down quite a bit off of that. But I brought my portfolio, if anybody just like to browse to it, see what I've done. I started out I was in the Army for 4 years. I was a German interpreter during Vietnam. I was stationed in Berlin, and we took care of bad guys or related the bad guys to the people in Vietnam and let them know where they were. We found a bunch of stuff. One of the stories out of that was, one of the stories from that period is Russia. We got Russia up, and Russia was talking about seeing a UFO, and the UFO was just going so fast, and they were chasing it. They couldn't catch it. Then all of a sudden they get close to it, and all of a sudden they go shoot off, just off the thing, off the record, what I call it, radar. Anyway, it just kept going, and all of this stuff were working. At the time, we were sitting there going, we do have UFOs. We got aliens here and stuff. You know, we were going crazy. And so after I got out of the Army, I was sitting there one day, and I said, you know what I think that UFO was? It was a And so I looked up when it was built. It was built in 1963. I was in the Army from 67 to 71. And I'm sitting there going, yes, sir. It was a blackbird going across Russia, just, seeing how far they can get the Russians to come and chase them. Anyway, that was one of the stories that was really kind of funny for us. But, yeah, I had a good time in the Army. I used to go to the museums and stuff like this, and I got dealing with it. I was interested in art when I was 6 years old. The teacher called my mother in and said, your son's different from everybody else. And so it turns out that she said, well, what do you mean? He says, well, he doesn't make white clouds. He makes colored clouds. He does things. He knows how to put depth into work by, running a road through the area. And I did build churches as a kid and stuff. And so she said, well, the first thing he ever drew was a horse. And she said, it actually looked like a horse. So it was really kind of funny. And, but she told us, we don't have the money for that. Dad was in the Navy, got $21 a month, out of the thing. And so the teacher said, you just let him paint and draw and do whatever he wants to the entire time he's there. So I did. And it's been one of my first loves. I call it a bad habit because it's like, somebody that's got a habit, you got to have one. You got to do this, you got to do that. And so I got to do that. And when I got married, my wife, bless her heart, she didn't mind me being in art. So I set up my own business and I did portraits in the mall. And I met her doing portraits. And she came in, sat down, got a portrait done. We got to talking. And I said, I kind of like this girl. And so she got out and left, and I didn't get her phone number. So the next thing I knew, I had to saw her in the mall. I was working at Westwood Mall, which doesn't exist anymore. Wow. And I saw her, and I went down and chased her down, got her phone number, and had the closest date to that day I could get, and stay sane. Anyway, and then I asked her, would you like to come over to the studio and see my etchings? And she looks at me and, kind of does that turnaround. You a jerk or something? And she said, yeah, I'll go see him. And she got over there and she says, he actually had etchings. And she couldn't believe it. So anyway, it's been we've been married 51 years now. And it's been interesting, I would think. And it's gone by fast. I never thought it would go by fast, but it did. And so she helps out in the shows, when I go to a show or something, she does a few things, good things. She gets aggravated with me because I pack a tight car or pack a tight van, and she comes back and stones everything in the van, and I have to dig it all back out and put it back the way it came in. So it's, but she's kind of like my inspiration on whether something's sellable or not. Because when I do something, she'll say, that looks like it needs to be in the museum. That means I can't sell it. And but I do these other things, and she said, well, that's sellable, that'll work. So I listen to her on those parts. Anyway, so after the Army, I got, I'll tell you one little story. You were talking about putting me on YouTube. I don't mind it, except I was at Benoist Tires last year, and I had 5 policemen come roaring up to Benoist Tires. This guy got out, he says, hey, you, come here. And I looked around, and he said, no, you, come here. So I went up there, and he said, somebody saw you on America's Most Wanted. So that may be one of the things that we And so I told him, I said, you sure this isn't a prank? And he said, oh, no, sir, it's not a prank. And I said, no, my wife has a habit of pranking me every now and then. She pranked me when I was teaching at PJC. Sent a stripper in my class, and I'm sitting there getting embarrassed and everything, and she did a dance and stuff, and left. And then she called me and said, how'd it go? And I said, well, it went. So, anyway, she, and I told them about her pranking me, and the police started laughing. I had them rolling on the ground, and I told them about the time we had somebody that, one time I got a phone number that it's called the White House Publishing, because this guy was selling magazines. And I called that number, and it turned out to be, yes, sir. And I said, I'm trying to get a hold of the White House Publishing. And she goes, well, not sure we have that. And then she says, how'd you get this number? And I said, from a guy selling magazines. And so then she says, I'd like to talk to Mrs. Reagan. And she goes, sir, do you know where you're calling? I said, well, I was calling the White House Publishing Company. She says, no, sir, you're calling the White House. Well, I got Secret Service coming down, wanting to know who I was.
Oh, no.
And it was quite interesting, that trip. And so my wife pranked me on that one when she had the NCIS, call me, and the girls play like they're NCIS. And I was talking about all the stuff that's going on and getting hyper about it. And I'd taken them to lunch, and I kind of looked in the mirror, and they were all giggling and laughing, and I knew I'd been pranked. So the police were just sitting there just laughing, and the lieutenant, the guy comes up and he said, this is the guy we're looking for. I looked at him, he doesn't have any hair. And I said, I got some hair left, and I said, he's got itty beard like this. I got a little bit fuller beard. And anyway, the lieutenant comes over, and he made me an honorary deputy sheriff, out there. So I'm now an honorary deputy sheriff with the Pensacola Police. And so it's funny. And then as they were leaving, I heard one guy say, I still think we need to put him on the ground and handcuff him. Well, the problem is, they could put me down, but they couldn't get me back up. So that was pretty good. Anyway, I got plenty of stories, but the thing that happened was, when I got back from the Army, I went out to West Florida, got my BFA in art. I knew I wanted to do art when I got out. And I was so dedicated about it that I was willing to go out on Pensacola Beach, sleep in the sand, and paint the sand if I had to, if that's how dedicated I was with this. And so Quayside people I got involved with the artists in Quayside, and we started our own show, out there. They had the Great Gulf Coast Art Show. And I think I won a first place on a little tiny etching I did. And I won't tell you what it was because it's borderline. And anyway, so I think I won that. And then we started our own show the next year that was, for the local artists. And then I got involved, found out about the Gulf Breeze Arts out here. And I went to it, and I'm not sure when it started, but I think it was in the late 80s that Gulf Breeze Arts started. And it was Evelyn Dillery that was if anybody remembers her or knows her name, is Evelyn Dillery was the first president of the organization. And so I got over here, and I liked it. It was fun to sit down and talk and look and listen to people and see what was going on. And everybody had a story. Everybody had something that they could give to let you know what was going on in the arts around Pensacola and stuff. And so I started going to shows, and it just worked out, started blooming. And then Artel called me in one day, about 5 years afterwards, and asked me if I would help start Artel. I said, I already started one. I don't think I could start another one, so I had to beg off on that one. But I like Artel. Artel is really cool. And as the Gulf Breeze Arts, we kind of get involved in a lot of things. One of the things that's really neat is that our goals out of this was to create education of the arts and what we do as local. And when I was teaching at PJC, I got tired of and I wanted that dedicated to the local artists. And so the big guys at the campus came over and said, no, we can't do that. And so I kind of, we talked, finally we said that we'd have one for the students at PJC, or no, one for the out-of-towners, and then one for the locals. So we did that for a couple of years. And I don't know how it worked. Judy got orders and I got transferred with her, so it kind of lay dormant for a while. And so we, at Gulf Breeze, we're interested in creating an education where you have what the artists do and what they can do. And that was one of the reasons I enjoyed the Great Gulf Coast Art Show when it first started. Was you can go down there and you can sit with an artist and find out what they're doing and how they handle stuff and develop it. So, and then we're full of information about what goes on in the area and everything. And our first show was developed by Audrey Dye. She's still here with us, and she did really a great job putting that show together. And then she let me take over, or made me take over, to put it that way. And I went over to see Buzz Eddy, and Buzz Eddy says, well, Flory, you want to put the show on? I said, well, Buzz, do you want a flea market, or do you want a real art show? He says, I want a real art show. That's what we have, and that's exactly what we have now. And that's how we started with it. And in 2004, I had to drop out because I couldn't handle the walking, and I couldn't handle my legs giving out. Didn't realize I was dehydrated, and so if I dehydrated myself, I'd stay with it as long as I could, but that didn't work. Then Ivan came along and wiped us out, and we used to have the show in the parking lot out here, and it was great. It was well organized because you could walk around it. If you missed something, you walk around it again. And we had as many artists out there as we do in this show now. And so, I took a few liberties, like painting numbers on the sidewalk, which I don't know whether they hated me for it or wanted to get rid of me, but and then I wanted them to. I requested to have tie downs put in the parking lot, like aircraft tie downs. You put it in the ground, and the tents can go up and they can tie down and keep them from being blown away. Because whenever we had bad weather, you better hang on to your tent. And I had Channel 3 out there one day, and we were up here at the old building and giving an interview, and I said, well, this is the show, and all of a sudden the camera would focus out there, and one of the tents just went up like this. And I said, well, I guess we're kind of closed the show for the day, but we'll be back tomorrow. And so Channel 3, when they put it on TV, it said, well, they closed the show. Didn't hear me tell them that we'd be back tomorrow. So you have to be careful what you say to Channel 3. And I know them over there as well too. I used to play Santa Claus, and I used to do portraits in there and advertising the show. And I did a lot of things and didn't realize what all I'd done. Anyway, Jared, he asked me, he says, what did you do in the Army? And I told him I can't tell you what I did. I said it's a secret and classified. And he said, you mean if you told me you'd have to kill me? I said, yeah, pretty much. So I just used to make his chain, a little bit every now and then. And Sue Strong was really sweet. She was a really sweet girl. And I played Santa Claus one time too with her. Okay, and let's see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, when that, just before Ivan, I didn't know Ivan was coming. Just before Ivan, I just had to step down. I just couldn't take it anymore. Although I loved what I was doing. I went out and I checked. I found artists and I pull them in, get their name, and give them an invitation to the show. And I enjoyed that kind of running around and doing that. And I pretty well knew all the artists that were in the show. I'm lucky, and still alive, then I think that, I'll judge the show. And they asked me to judge it, and a lot of times they think, I judged the fair one day, and somebody said, I quit, I'm not going to judge that full run. Well, they don't know I'm fair, out of the thing. I love abstracts, and I love realism. So, or semi-realism, whatever it has to be. And so they thought I would be a little bit too much on the realistic side and everything. So they didn't know that, I had a master's in fine art, which, is a lot more to be in fine art than just saying I got it. Okay, and Gulf Breeze also serves I'm sorry, just one quick. We also developed a scholarship for little budding artists, and I think it's still going. I know it's still going on at PJC, and every time we have a show, a portion of that money, quite a bit of it goes towards the development of that scholarship, and then we also take the money and divvy it up between the high schools and elementary schools around this area and Gulf Breeze, who helps out with the show and stuff. So anyway, we got that scholarship, and that was a challenge. If you ever want to put out a scholarship, take it to somebody else because they come right in. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Yeah. I love going to art shows. Okay. And as I mentioned to you, I'm always fascinated by all the different mediums
Right.
that people have.
Right.
And it would absolutely boggle my mind to judge a show because I see so many things that I love. Okay.
Right.
How do you narrow it down?
Well, it's called, there are certain things you look for in a painting or a sculpture or whatever it happens to be. A lot of it is proportions. It's where your placements that you put things in painting. You can't just take a painting and throw crap at it and you get a nice painting out of it. Although sometimes you can, but you have to manipulate it a little bit to get it to work. And so, with the knowledge that I have about it and what I know in the breakup of space, the breakup of everything, if things are kind of like a little off, I know that I can see it real quick. The big one that I used to hate, and not hate, was that somebody takes and copies a photograph directly. And I can tell it right away by where the horizon line is. Usually it's right in the middle, and that means that it doesn't have any flare or anything to it, and although it's good, but they haven't manipulated it enough to tell a story or make it do something else. And so, anyway, I kind of look at these little points that I have, and once I do it, and it gets down to where I can have 4 or 5 best of shows, and then how can I judge that? I have to, then it's going down to the nitpicky things, and colors might not match or work, or some would be overworked. Another one is too much going on in a painting that you can't really understand what's going on. I've got 2 paintings. I've got them on my phone. I've got one is called Ghost Crab and the Blue Heron. And the blue heron is jumped back. He's looking at that ghost crab in the water there, and the ghost crab's looking at him. His eyes are just wide open up here, and it's got a water scene and everything. And so I call it the ghost crab and the blue heron. Subtitle: Oh crap! Somebody's going to get eaten on that. And then I've got another one out now that's coming up. It's still working on it. It's One Lost at Sea, and it's takeoff from Dan Dunn. He was a famous water painter. If you remember him a little bit, his son is a chef here in Pensacola. And anyway, Dan Dunn did these fantastic water scenes, And I've got this boat, a sailboat going over a wave, and I've got seagulls following it and doing things, and so I was sitting there, what can I title this thing? And so I thought, well, I'll just call it Lost at Sea. And the waves are beating the thing to death. And then I said, across the sea, subtitle, "Oh crap." So I'm thinking, maybe I've got a whole series.
A
of
series,
things
yeah.
about
Oh crap.
But I've changed quite a bit. Personally, I've gone from really bright colors, even though I still like it, bright colors to actually making soft grays and stuff in the works that I'm doing. And it's fun to do that. My paintings now are taking on stories. They're kind of like having a story involved in it. When I was little, my dad was in the Navy. We were stationed in Okinawa. And so my color combinations come from Okinawa, which is brilliant pink, over red, bright yellow, and greeny green. I mean, it's just that, powerful colors. And it took me years to get rid of it, and one story, I was in my studio and I was sitting there putting the paints on the stuff, and I was wondering what in the world was going on. I can't get that daggone color to, come out of it. And so all of a sudden I realized that I'd gone down to the store and got some of these new glasses that change color.
Oh, no.
My studio was facing the east, and the sun would come in, and I'm sitting there and I took them off, and I thought, oh man, I got tons of color in this thing, so I kept trying to break the colors up. So you gotta watch what you wear, to get those glasses to work for you. So anyway, that's pretty good. Anybody, you can ask me any question about anything. I've got a story for it, or something maybe. I got some more stories, but I can't tell you those. Let's see. Art stories, here's a good one. At the Gulf Breeze Art Show, I had the father from St. Anne's across the street. Was that the Catholic Church over there?
Monsignor Hunt.
What is it called?
Monsignor Hunt, are you talking about?
Yeah, it's right across the
St.
street,
Anne's.
on the high school and stuff. And we were out there, and Monsignor came over and he says, Mr. Brown, he's real nice. I said, Mr. Brown, he says, could you put off having the show until noon? And this was on a Saturday or Friday or something like this. And I said, I'm sorry, sir. I said, we have it planned, it's been advertised, it starts at 9 in the morning. He said, well, I could use some extra parking spaces, for the church. And I said, well, we'll try our best, kind of delay it or something like this. And so then I kept thinking, I said, well, I'm gonna have to start the show at 9. He said, okay, so he went back that night. A miniature tornado came through the show. And so it tore up about 15 to 20 people's, things, tore off all the stuff. Broke a lot of pottery. And so the next meeting, I told him, if that Monsignor comes over here and asks you for something, you give it to him. So, and then the other one that was really good, this one show, we had been rained out twice in a row, and we were drowned rats. And so this particular show, we were praying, really praying hard for good weather. And sometimes I think God has a sense of humor. And what it was, he not only gave us good weather, he gave us excellent weather, great, and everybody went to the beach.
So nobody went to the show.
So anyway,
Yeah,
so that was something that was really interesting. So now we pray, just give us a little rain, not much. Anyway, there's been I've had to make a lot of decisions when I was doing that. And it's really taught me a lot of lessons on meeting people and how to greet them and so forth. So if you have any questions to me, feel free. I've got tons of, yes ma'am.
I'd like to make the comment.
Oh, yes ma'am.
I belong to the arts, the Gulf Breeze Arts,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
a few years. And you are most, I'm not an artist.
Right.
You're a most remarkable group. You are a small group, a tremendously considerate group of each other. You have
Thank you very
wonderful
much.
sort of classes in your
Right.
meetings,
Right.
which I thoroughly enjoyed because I
Thank you
knew
very
nothing
much.
about it.
Appreciate it.
But you're just remarkable and you do so much for the community.
This has been the group that I've ever been with, and it's amazing. I love all of them, you know, all of them. And it's really, it's fun to be with them. And what's really interesting that you learn something even though you're not an artist. You know, it's just something that you something to pick a back pocket out of the
Well,
night.
there were only two of us that weren't artists really in that group,
I
Eddie
think
Allen
I
and
heard you,
myself.
yeah.
And it's too bad that more of the community doesn't belong to and support the artists and come to the meetings. It's
I
not
don't know how we
probably
can-
what you want, but it would be wonderful.
I've never
I certainly
figured out,
would want them.
I've never figured out how to get the community more involved in it. The Great Gulf Coast does, and what they do, I went over there because I was trying to get the Great Gulf Coast people to allow the local artists to have a place, like Gulf Breeze Arts have a place that they can display their work and do their thing. And so I got involved with it, and one of the things they used to do, I don't know if they still do, but they get the signs and then they run them through and they look at them, and they don't jury them, they just see what's going on in the show, and then they take them off to the jury. The jury, you know, has that last word on who's gonna be in the show. And I came this close. I can't feel these two fingers. Somebody, when they pull the thing out of my arm, I can feel it, but that close to getting them to let them have a tent out there and put the artists in there and different places. And so they had a bunch of people that really enjoyed it. You know, maybe let's get this, you know, get the artists back into the local artists involved in it. Didn't happen, but hey, we tried, and that was one of the things. And of course, I can let you in on little secret type things. One year, I've been involved in that show several times, and it seems like seems like every time I had an address that was out of town, I got in the show. But every time I had an address in Pensacola, I didn't get in. And so and then being one of the first winners of the show, I'm going, okay, because I was very creative about all the stuff I did and everything. And so I told them, I said, you know, it's kind of interesting, this happens. And all of a sudden I got in the show. And I had a new set of paintings out there that were 2 inches by 8 feet. And a lady came into my booth and she said, oh, you sold all your paintings. And I said, no ma'am, they're all on the wall. And that was part of my master's, was compressed space paintings. So I compressed everything down to where it was like this and it just grew out over the side. And so anyway, so not airing out a lot of dirty laundry with some of this stuff. Sometimes it's good to let it out. And finally, we're now getting more local artists in the show. So that's one of the things that happens. And but the Gulf Breeze Art Show, 95% were local artists, and the others were people that were very good from out of state and stuff. So we became a really neat show. And one other thing, I was in a show down in Orlando, Florida, and this little short guy comes out. He was wearing a Greek hat, and he looks at me and he says, looking at my artwork, he says, Fuller Brown, where do I know that guy? Fuller Brown, where do I know that name? All of a sudden his eyes got real big, and he looked over at me and he says, so you're the rebel. And I go, oh man, kind of made the hair stand on your head, and I go, the rebel? He says, yeah, you've changed so much of some of the policies in the show with the Gulf, with the what do you call it, Quayside people, that now we have certain things that you have to have. Got to know that the judge seen you. You got the way we handle the show and stuff like this. It just turned out to be good. But I did not know I was known as the rebel. Now, if he'd have called me the swamp fox, that would have been something. I didn't live in the swamp. Okay, but again, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us approximately how many artists will be in the Gulf Breeze Art Festival this year?
Right. I used to have 130, and when you get up to 130, you start you know, you don't try to, you know, beat around the bush, I guess, and, this little short guy that was, you know, so I'm the rebel, his name was, shoot, I can't remember, but he was, the editor of Sunshine Artist magazine down in, which is a statewide magazine. And when they came down, they came to see our show the first time. That was probably the second year when I was in charge. And, the, person came in and said, our show, the Gulf Breeze Art Show, was a diamond in the rough. And, you know, next year will be our 30th year. Can you believe that? I can't even believe it, you know, and so I'm just happy to, you know, be a part of it. Yeah.
How did it work out this year with it being here, you know, on
Well,
these grounds versus right on 98?
Right, it's rather tough. I'm gonna say it's working, but it's rather tough. It goes out, down one side of the baseball field, and comes back down the other side of the baseball field, on that one side, and it seems to work. It's a little bit out of the way, and it's kind of hard to see the tents and stuff like this, and so people go by, they just drive by, it's another thing, you know, out of the, they think it's a bunch of kids playing out there or something. But, it's a little bit on the tough side, and this is something I thought about, but don't quote me, and you can turn yours off if you want to. When we had it in the parking lot, we had a perfect hole out here, and it was, we could handle a lot of people, and we handled the number of the crowds. And people drive by, oh, what's that? You know, and they stop and see what's going on. Well, I was thinking, maybe if we could put a track and field track out here someplace and have people run, you know, around the place. And that way, when it comes time for the art festival, we can put the artists in the track like this, and people can walk around it and get a, you know, get to see everything without, you know, missing anything. So, be judging this year, this 26th, they promised me a golf cart. So, I said, well, that'd be nice. I just, you know, hate for them to spend the money on it, but when I'm judging, I go to every artist, and I talk to them, find out what they're doing, and I get the chance to meet them, greet them, and look at their work. That's just me. And the judges that we've had are all like that. And, so that makes us, I guess it makes us all rebels. Yes.
Is there typical, like a criteria to enter as an artist to be accepted into the show?
Yes.
And what would be those four critical criteria? I'm talking about judging, but just to get in.
Right. We have what's called a jury, and that's made up of local artists and they're all pretty well briefed in the way something should be. And sometimes you find things like, for example, we had one beautiful rope work, you know, for making animals and stuff, and it turned out that there was two people doing it, and what it was, they were all from China, and they were buying this stuff and bringing it into China and stuff like that. So anyway, there is a criteria, and it has to be pretty good work on it. So it's there. I've got a question up here.
Just a quick question, did Quayside Gallery used to be on Palafox?
It did. Yeah, we.
Early 90s, right?
Yeah, Quayside Gallery was really kind of neat. Anson Phelps, myself, Troy Campbell, and Zach Basin, we all had a studio upstairs. We cut the beams out and dropped it down so we could have a second, third floor in it. And they didn't quite like that. And so we had a ladder that went up on the roof, and we had our parties up there. You know, drink a little wine and stuff like that. We didn't throw ourselves off the building, but it was fun. It was a very enjoyable time. And the idea of the Quayside was to, we were starving. And there was 9 of us out at the West Florida. And they, Bob Green and John Kemp and some others. It was amazing. The heavy guns and the artists were there at West Florida at the same time. And we needed a place to work, sell our work and stuff like this. And then we got involved with a bunch of other stuff. And then they opened up the gallery on the other one, Quayside, or learn and look, and they'll tell you what's going on, and how you did that, and that's what we wanna know, so.
Would the oval at the track work, the oval at the ballpark work?
Pardon me?
Not to take anything against the community center, but the oval track at the ballpark across the highway.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it across
You mean
this
the
highway?
stadium?
The stadium, the
That's where they
football
use that,
stadium.
yeah.
There's an oval track at the football stadium across from the elementary school.
Oh, from the high school?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh.
In the
The
stadium.
walkover
Oh, in
and,
the stadium.
Football
yeah,
stadium.
yeah, anyway.
Talk to the principal again, twist his arm.
Cause like they
Now, why didn't
they
you
had a
do it?
big Halloween thing out there.
And
And
in
there's
the
plenty of parking
summer,
there.
there's no, well, the kids might practice, but not on the weekends, I don't think.
It's interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's in October, maybe. Well, anyway, it'd be something to look into if you need an oval track.
We usually have that show last weekend in March.
Right.
And that's
March,
why-
my bad.
That's why it's part of Easter and stuff, and, we had, Palm Sunday was another day, the pastor from over there asked us to do something, and we said, yep, we'll do it.
It's right across Daniel Drive
From
the,
St. Anne's.
Catholic Church.
Yeah.
parking lot. It's right across Daniel Drive,
Oh,
the
okay.
stadium.
Okay.
That's what we're
interesting,
talking
yeah. Big thing is, if you want a lot of people to come to it, you have to be visible. And if you're not visible, then, it's not there, so, anyway,
All right.
I don't know what you want me to do or anything, I think, I gave you as much as I can, and
You
I
did
got,
great.
I
You
got
did
about
great.
45.
Very
minutes
fun.
to
Can you open it
I
and
can
then
open it.
we'll have a look at it,
Look at it.
that, yes.
This is page back to the seventies, on this
Yeah,
side.
and Maine.
There's a little bit of sample of everything except
Is
some of
it
the
something
stuff.
you like hold up, I mean, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
just kind of through it,
Yeah, well,
and then they,
I just sent it down to the quick version.
okay.
This,
There's so little here, you could probably come over here.
this is, this is part of my master's, part of my master's show, in condensing artwork. Now, this is laid out in a design, and there's 7 elements well, actually 14 elements of design. And line, form, shape, form, and, value, and stuff like that. So that's what this is my invitation, to my master show. And, I used to take and put these on there and put them as, limited editions, and I put them up, they all stole. They stole every one of them I put up, because now they all had their little photograph. So, anyway, that's what I did for my masters. And it's called compressed face painting, and they were 2 inches by 8 feet. And what was really interesting about it being 2 inches by 8 feet, you have as much framing in that as if you did a 4x4 painting. Isn't that weird? And so I was really pleased with that. Now, I got my start doing graphite pencil, and hunters would ask me to do their wildlife for them and stuff. And this is a show that I had in Pensacola with the thing is, White. And George White and I had a show put on together at Keyside. And after I put the show up, they all wanted to throw me out because I turned it into a gallery. It wasn't a real gallery until I got there after I had my master's. So, anyway, I guess I stepped on a lot of feet. This is a foxes, and these are pen and ink. They're not graphite. It's pen and ink, and it's a technique that you learn how to do it. And there's a guy here, an artist that does it on blackboard, and it is beautiful. He does it. Rodman, his name is Dennis Rodman or something, not Dennis Rodman, but Rodman, and he does the most. I can't get him in the show because I have to judge him.
Do you have a favorite medium?
Do I have a favorite medium? My favorite medium is black and white, which is pencil, and the reason is that I'm more comfortable in that because I do shading and blending, like that deer, there's a lot of shading and blending with this. You do it by hand or by rag or whatever on that. And so with pen and ink, you still have to do the process of the shading, but it's through lines and dots and stuff like that, so. And, okay, this one right here, that painting there is one of the paintings that we did at, it was called the Fuller Brush Game, about 8 of us. And we did these giant 2-by-4-foot paintings and hung them on the lamp poles down in the plaza, whatever, Ferdinand or whatever, not Plaza Ferdinand, what's that? Seville, right. And so this one is the corner of someplace up on Spring Street.
How long does something like that take you to make, to do?
Well, it takes me at least a week, and I'd roughly say about 100 hours or better
I'm not
to do one.
surprised. That's
This
pretty
one,
cool.
this one is Pensacola Bay when it was, had boats, old shrimp boats and stuff in there. That one didn't take quite as long because it didn't have all the stuff filled in and everything. And so I like the character of Pensacola. Now it's starting to get a little too over modernized or something maybe, because I like what we used to have in this thing. That house, this is the other painting that went with the
Yeah.
house. This is about the turn of the century. And I had the little boy, across the street come over and dress up, and I photographed him, and then I worked from that. And I like doing stuff with all the wrinkles and stuff in it. And I had a plane, I made a model of the Wright Brothers plane, and I put it in his hand. And the goggles he's got up here, those are tuna fish hands. And so I have fun with the models and stuff. And,
Yeah, that sounds cool when you put things in there that
yeah, that
have
everybody
a
wants.
special meaning.
These are raccoons, kind of a baby and a mama raccoon type thing. I always like doing a male, female in it if I can, a family type situation, because what it does is it gives it some sort of reality, to the work. And what we have, male, female, all of this. So, let's see. And, okay. My favorite one is this little squirrel thing on there. That is, the bushy tail was just lines, and when it worked out, it looked like a bushy tail. I couldn't believe what I got. Sometimes I freak myself out, and that's what makes it fun. And off of that. So I set up in a mall over in Mobile, and I sold prints of these. These are originals. And I sold prints of these, and I had hand colored a bunch of them. They're in here. This is the first ones I did. But what happened was, I started looking back, I sold more black and white than I did hand tinted colors. And so, okay. This one I'm not working on it now, but this is original. And one of the paintings I'm doing is I'm using my birds that I did here in the painting. And this is like done in '78, and now, I'm putting them into this oil painting. So
40 years later.
And then, I called him Clyde.
Oh.
He used clothes for me out at the beach, and he would sit there, and, he would sit there, turn his head just right, and everything. So I had to do it. It was.
Of course, he was
He
posing.
was doing that. Walt Disney had me do I'm not supposed to show you this, so don't just.
Oh.
Anyway.
We didn't see.
What happened was Walt Disney wanted me to make I was doing these in brass. I was doing this, and then we took it to the brass place, and they'd etch them in brass. And then I'd come back, and then I put this acid on it, and turn the brass black, for those lines. Anyway, I did this for Walt Disney to, the Three Faces of Disney, and it turned out, one time, I'm sorry, I see what you're saying. Okay. Anyway, it turned out that, they said, oh no, what we want is Donald Duck noses and she was saying, I said, well, why didn't
No.
you tell me? And I went through this, and so I gave Mrs. Disney this brass engraving, and my sister, Lydia, and you probably know her, Lydia Spencer.
Oh, that's your
Yeah,
sister?
that's my sister.
Yeah.
Her
Oh,
daughter,
wow.
Abigail,
Oh.
married one of the executives at Disney World, and he said, I know where that is. It's on the third floor of such and such, that brass engraving stuff. But anyway, you can, you know, if you got time or what do you wanna do, I got time, I don't have to be in until midnight.
Oh, okay.
But,
Yeah, we can quick do the rest of our meeting and then if y'all
yeah,
wanna look at the.
yeah. This is the bald eagle and the bass. I did this for the Bass Association for awards. And I did the mallards, and in the mallards, I took and hand tinted these. You can see it takes, one of these hand tintings takes, 7 or 8 layers.
Now, is that pen or a paint or?
Well, this is pen and ink and watercolor.
Okay.
And
And
color.
watercolor, okay.
So I took that and hand tinted these with the color. And this is the bass that you saw.
Okay.
Hand tinted in watercolor. And I like watercolor. I'm learning to like it more and more because the first watercolor I did was sucked.
Messy.
And I've done things, I worked with the Navy on the Admiral's quarters. This painting is hanging in the Admiral quarters, and they had the chef out there, I think it was Dan Dunn, he was showing, and behind me was my painting of the Admiral's quarters there. So, or drawing of it. And I did a lot of stuff. My brother-in-law got sued for that.
Oh, thanks, sir.
Nancy Spencer.
Nancy.
And he had me do it, so I did it. And so, anyway.
I
they-
love
they tried to
Einstein.
sue. And this is what I used to do in the mall, this type of work. And I learned that I could take and do the drawings and make them smooth and nice and really make them look good. So
Is that charcoal or that's
it's,
pencil?
It's a wolf carbon, it's a carbon pencil.
Carbon, okay.
Right. So, anyway, you're welcome to look through these, and matter of fact, that one, there was 3 kids, and I did them all, and what they did was they decorated their living room with, that, redid their whole thing. Yeah. 45 minutes. I'm going fast. So, and, but I found that I could do it, the setup in less than 10 seconds, or less than 4 or 5 minutes. And then I would end up taking, smudge them, and I could do it real quick, and a few things, and whammo, I had those things out. And I was offered a job over in Mobile with a, company over there that did, prints and stuff like this. And he says, how much do you make on this? I said, well, I said, well, I do, every 15 minutes, I get, $20. And, he goes, we can't afford you, that's $80 an hour.
Do you, Fuller, do you still have your wife's one, does she still have the one you
Oh,
did?
she's got it locked up. Her mother didn't like it because I made her eyes a little bit bigger, not bigger, but actually the way they are. She has kind of a small eyes. And, she liked the one she got in Italy where they made her eyes real big and